growing a business is not the same as transforming a business.
You know, we built ourselves to where we're getting closer to being debt free, and going into a building like this, you know, you're taking on a lot of risk.
How do you know when your current model isn't just strained, but when the current model actually becomes your constraint?
Communicate. You have to communicate. You have to just keep driving it home. You have to keep talking about it. If you're not talking about it with your team, then you're going to fail right off the bat.
Hey, welcome back to the 3PX show. I'm Steve. This is Wayne. And you wouldn't realize, but we're starting a little bit late. Part of that is Quentin's fault. The other part of that is my fault.
I'm just sitting here.
But it's on time. If you're a viewer or a listener, it's right on time.
It's right on time.
Right.
It's exactly what you wanted when you get here. So we're here. We're ready to start.
That's right. All right.
No rabbits that
Nope.
we're chasing.
We have to remind ourselves of that every episode we start. Okay. But the context of this episode, you know, if you've been following our journey, then most of you know we went through a major transformation.
We did.
It was really a total of about a 2-year transformation, and then the launch of it was probably 30 days or so, like hypercare, you know, all of that. But the lead up to it was, you know, about 2 years. So
Isn't that crazy though, that the lead up, that it's been a 2-year transformation on that? It flew by in a sense.
like
Like
that.
Yeah.
It really did. It was probably the fastest 2 years I've ever experienced in my career. And here we are in July.
I know already.
Dude, about to be August.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how growing a business is not the same as transforming a business.
Yeah.
And kind of what that transformational journey looks like, because growing a business creates pressure on the business, but transformation, when done right, creates capacity. And that's the place that we have arrived at now, where we're growing again, and we're not feeling the pressure of that growth,
Right.
because the transformation created capacity for us.
Yeah.
So we're in a good spot.
You know, that's a great spot to be at, honestly. I mean, think about where we were this time last year, because both systems, not both systems, I say the e-commerce system and the facilities, we were bottlenecked on both. You know, we were struggling. We were hitting capacity. We were hitting the ceiling on both sectors. And, you know, if we wouldn't have been working on this for the past 2 years, really, I mean, we'd be in a world of hurt. And now we with this transformation, it has allowed us to have that capacity in both areas that now it's set us free.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought about that. If we had not started when we started, it was a 2-year transformation. If we had not started 2 years prior to the point where we were about to explode, we would have exploded. We would not have made it another 2 years.
There's no way. I mean, we'd have been lucky if we'd have made it another year. I mean, you know, it's one of those that you have to either slow down or do something totally different, right?
We would have had to slow down, say no to a lot more business.
Yeah.
We would have had to shrink back down in order to be manageable again, based on the system that we had and based on the facility that we had. It was breakneck speed.
Yeah, and most businesses, that's a death sentence, right? That's one of those that if you slow down, then the wheels stop turning. And just industry for us, the way we go to business, it would just, you know, sometimes you feel like you can't slow down. You just keep moving forward, and you got to keep pressing and keep just your eyes on the future and where you're going. And that slowing down can really cause a huge dilemma.
Yeah, and I'll say this. To that point, most companies don't fail because they change too much. They fail because they change too late.
That's a good point.
And
right.
Thankfully for us, that wasn't our case.
Yeah.
We started that change process, you know, 2 years before we were really at that kind of point of breaking.
Yeah.
But had we not changed in time, then it's trouble. So you have to recognize, and we'll get into this. You have to recognize well in advance, before you get to the point where, you know, the company is falling apart.
Yeah.
It's time to change, because transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a process.
It's a long process. You also think too, anything that you do when you're going to build something, especially when it comes to technology, e-commerce, and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't ever fall exactly on that date that you expect it to fall. There's going to be some pushback.
Hmm.
There's going to be some things that, hey, we got to shore this up. We got to do this, got to do that, and you add time to it. You got to try to keep the creep out. The scope creep as much as possible, but it still happens, and so it delays the process. Same way with facilities. Going into this new facility, both of them. We had a time frame where they were going to be months apart from each other, and by the time it all hit, they were days apart from each other. And then that was like, okay, let's do them both at the same time. And that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah.
But that actually worked out well because, if you're going to do it, just go ahead and jump all in with both feet and do it, right?
Worked out well for you.
Well, I'm not saying it didn't work out well for,
Now
at the end of the day, when we look back, when we're through it,
Yeah,
it's
true.
like, okay, we're done with both of them and it's over. And honestly, now things are clicking, and not say that we're just like running super smooth, but we're running pretty good right now.
Yeah. So in case anybody's listening and you're like, these guys up here are telling us what they think, but they've really never walked the walk or any of that. We in the same week, by accident, simply because the system launch got delayed. We wanted to launch in October, and then take kind of that Q4 to transform, to launch, to get the system right, and then we wanted to move
Yeah.
in Q1. Well, what had happened was the system ended up getting launched delayed because we just weren't ready. There were some key blockers that we just had to fix, and we didn't feel good about launching. So what happened was we ended up launching the new system in January, literally within the same week that we moved from a 60,000 square foot facility into a 200,000 square foot facility, moved 150 employees. Oh, and we moved one department at a time. You remember that? So
Yes.
one department would move, and they worked in a temporary location for about a week. And then they would move into the permanent location once construction was done. Then another department would transition, and they would move the next week into the temporary location. On top of installing all new machines, moving all the lifts, and launching a new system, training people, fixing bugs, all that stuff on the fly. And
But doesn't it feel good right now?
we didn't crash the plane.
We didn't crash.
Yeah.
We
So
didn't.
we've been there. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying is we understand what transformation is. We understand how challenging it is. We understand how hard it is to say yes to very, very risky decisions
Right.
and then actually work through that, because we did it twice at the same time.
Right. And, hats off to our team because,
Absolutely.
we have a strong team. And you can't do something like what we went through without having good people, because that can't fall on the shoulders of one person at all. And honestly, if you think about how the transition went with the e-commerce, getting the website, clicking off that night, it was good. And, you always have your little bugs here and there, but, it was successful. The launch was, and was very good. When we moved into the new facility, we moved that entire facility over there as far as operations in less than a week.
That's right. Less
which
than a
was
week.
almost through a weekend, and it was a lot. And there's a lot of coordination before and during and after. And even after, like you said a second ago, when we moved departments from the other two locations into here, it was very orchestrated, very coordinated of how we did it. And honestly, it went well. There was a few little hiccups and delays, but man, I tell you what, they did a fantastic job getting in here.
Yeah. Nothing ever goes smooth.
I'm not, yeah.
Busted a water main line.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Just happened like the first week we're in and we're ready to start running. We bust a water main line. I say we, I won't mention who it was. I really, how I say I won't mention who it was, and then I say the name, but I'm not going to do that. We busted a water main line. I will say we did call 411, and they did mark everything, and they messed it up. Anyways.
You just called that person out.
No,
right?
but they're not the ones who broke it, but they're the
They're
ones you
not.
trust to mark the line so that you don't break a line.
Yeah.
But anyways, we broke a water main line, and it couldn't be like the kitchen or something. It had to be the sprinkler system for the facility. So then we had to take like 15 people and put them on fire watch. So now, right off the bat, we're extremely shorthanded. That's 20% or 25% of our operational, staff. So now we're extremely shorthanded, and we have a backlog of work because we just came out of a 1 week shutdown, moving the new facility. Oh man, I'm getting upset and all stressed out just
Wow.
thinking about it. How did we make it through? All right. But
Maybe it wasn't as smooth as we thought. No, it
yeah,
was.
it was.
Hey, the first 6 months,
We had good people though to get
the
us
first
through it.
6 months were a struggle to a degree. First quarter, like we said a couple of episodes ago, but second quarter was great, and we're moving pretty good now. Now we can look back and laugh about it a little bit, but and the stress is still there, but a little bit of that pressure is off.
Do you remember what I text you? 3 words I text you after the Q2 P&L closed?
We're back, baby.
I said,
Exactly.
we're back, baby.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that felt good. All
It
right.
did.
But let me talk to you as an owner because built version 2 of the Pro Builder, right? And you guys had built it from scratch,
Yep.
moved into when you got this new building, when you moved into the depot, it was like you thought it's all the room you'd ever need.
I mean, I
Be
never would have thought in a
because
million
you didn't
years.
even take the whole building at first. You just took a
No.
little piece of it, and then you just kept growing and growing, and then took it over. So, talk to me about the moment where you start to realize that the thing that you created is actually the thing now that is starting to hold you back,
Wow.
and now you got to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
What does that feel like as an owner?
That's a tough feeling. I feel like we were hitting those walls a lot, because when we first started CDF, we were in a 3,000 square foot facility, just me and one other person, and we weren't there for very long. But it was just, we had our offices, we had our warehouse, our shop, everything in that 3,000 square foot facility, and we were buying just small orders, but you could feel it just everything it was on top of you. And then when we broke through that and moved up to the depot, it's a 60, 70,000 square foot building. And we took over 7,000 square foot of warehouse space and then about 1,500 square foot of office space. So we almost tripled in size, which was a fantastic feeling. And it felt like that, just you could take off and move and breathe. And it wasn't very long that we all of a sudden hit that capacity. And so I feel like we've been doing this the whole time for years on end. And I've always told my team, let's grow until we got to break through a wall, basically. Because sometimes you can step into something way too big, and then it swallows you up, right?
Mhm.
And so because there's times that we took over another section of it, and honestly, we weren't necessarily ready, but we worked our way through it, and we moved offices, moved different things, and I was like, hey, let's until we're ready to basically hypothetically break through the walls, then we're not ready to get that next spot and do it. But it's a tough feeling because you really stress out on where you're going to go next, how you're going to make that next move because there's always something that comes along with that next move. That's a big financial commitment.
Yep.
There's more equipment. There's more people. Just everything grows and everything expands. So you got to be prepared to make those moves. And it's sometimes it's not an easy decision to make, but it's a very necessary. If you want to continue to grow your business, it's very necessary to look and see, hey, what's next, and then be willing to take action on that.
You know, um, I'll write this down as a reminder, but a great episode would be as a founder, as an owner, also husband, homeowner, got kids,
Mm,
walking through how to know when it's the right risk decision. Because you mentioned, like, you didn't just write a check for millions
not
and
at all.
millions of dollars, right? Like you're borrowing money. Like we're going into debt to fund a lot of this new growth, and that alone is scary. So I don't want to do it today, but I think that's a really great episode for any scaling
Yeah.
founder that's taking on personal debt to finance, to fund, to
Yeah.
run. The
And
the
that's the
business.
aspect that a lot of people don't see too is that that when you make those moves, like coming into this building, it's a 200,000 square foot facility. It was a scary decision for Stephanie and I to make that because we built ourselves to where we're getting closer to being debt free and going into a building like this, you're taking on a lot of risk and
Probably more debt than at that. Probably more debt than you guys have ever even
oh,
thought about taking on.
not even close by far. Yeah.
And I think that we had a good I said we weren't going to talk about
But
this.
you look at good debt and bad debt, and we feel like that this right here was a very good debt type
I,
of thing.
I agree. But also, I did challenge you because I didn't want to be the person that was just always pushing and hey, we can do this and we can do that, and it's not my mortgage on the line. It's not my house on the line, kind of thing. But I said, hey, if you're not comfortable with this, we can stay right where we're at. I'll tune this thing up. We'll do over 20%, net income, and we'll just print money. We don't have to do this.
Yeah, but at some point that's going to break too, right? Because at some point you keep growing, and growth, as you grow, I mean, it just the evolution of it. You got to have more spaces. Sometimes you got to bring in more inventory if you're going to grow. Well, how do you bring in more inventory? We had already put 9 or 10 containers in the back lot, and it couldn't hold anymore. Maybe it could have held a few more containers, but we were starting to get full back there. And then if you had to go put another warehouse because you're going to bring material in, well, then you got to have more machines to be able to do it, more people, and before you know it, your expenses outweigh the risk anyway, right? And so you got to look and say, okay, where do we go and what do we do? And so it took a little bit of prayer and a lot of prayer actually, and just some thought process to go through it. And now we're on the other side and looking back, it was, I mean, by far the best decision that we made.
Yeah. So what I want to get into now is how do you know when your current model isn't just strained, but when the current model actually becomes your constraint? Because what Wayne is describing is that's when the model transitioned from, hey, we're strained, things are tough, to we are constrained.
Yeah.
We can't figure it out anymore in our current situation, and we have to pivot. And there's things that you see.
Right.
So I think Wayne, from a visionary perspective, may have a different answer than me from the integrator perspective. But my question to you is, as an owner, what were some of the things that you saw starting to break or starting to become hyper constrained that told you we have to transform, we have to change, this isn't going to work much longer? What were you seeing happening in the business that gave you those indicators early on?
Well, so from a financial part of it, especially, let's look at the e-commerce side for a second. When we started looking at that we were spending 80% of our money on fixing the old system,
Oh,
if not
man.
more than that, that's a huge tell right there, right?
Another podcast topic.
Yeah, it is. But you're spending more money on fixing something, and so you have to look at it and say, okay, we can stay and do what we're doing, but we really are going to have to bite the bullet and fix this and make it better, especially if we want to continue to grow. So, and as we're seeing it, and I look at it and I say, man, we're such a small spot in our industry in a sense right now. Even though we're growing tremendously, our industry is still really big compared to where we are, and so we have such a high growth projection that we can capture and get in. And so you either have to step back, like you said, and hey, we can step back and we can just do what we're doing and try to become ultra competitive and ultra successful and profitable, and just stay where we are. But at some point, you're going to hit the constraints on the production side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we looked at some of the products that we were doing, and you start looking at, let's take Storefront, for example. When we were there, everything's done by hand. And at some point, we got to become more precision. We got to be better at what we do and how we do it, and really fix, some of those holes as well. And we had no place to put equipment to be able to get ourselves more automated. And so that was a constraint. Inventory, we're putting inventory in containers in the back. So how do you count inventory really well if you got containers and people are trying to crawl through there, or if they need something, you're fighting. You start fighting against yourself, not fighting as
No.
that, but you're
Yeah.
fighting mentally, kind of thing,
Yeah.
against yourself. And at some point you just realize, man, we have to do something. Otherwise, this thing is going to totally break, right? And so, as an owner, I look at that, and my whole thought process is, if we're going to continue to grow, continue to keep moving, and me being the eternal optimist all the way around, I see that the opportunity is endless. And if we stop, then we're going to get passed up by our competition. They're going to catch up to us, whatever it may be. But we have to keep growing. We have to keep moving. And the next step is naturally, hey, we got to rebuild the system. the next step is naturally we got to move into a bigger facility, and we got to take those chances and make it happen.
So something you said, I just want to bring out because I think that was that was pretty profound, and that is when you said we're fighting against ourselves, and you didn't mean literally,
Yeah.
but what I would challenge the audience to ask yourself right now is think about the system that you use or the building that you have or whatever. Is all of that rowing in the same direction? Like, is it fighting for you to help you grow? Or do you find yourself more often than not fighting against your system to try to make it work? You're fighting against your capacity and your facility to try to make it work. And that's where we were. And that's what you're
It
describing.
is.
We were fighting against ourselves. That's the 80/20 that you were talking about earlier. We were spending 80% of our time, 80% of our IT investment
Yes.
trying to fix the system, trying to put out the fires, trying to make it work for us because had grown so much, and we recognized like, dude, we either got to just completely rebuild this thing or pivot, and ultimately, that's what we did. We 180-degree pivoted,
You remember,
but it was worth it now.
yeah, you remember being in the warehouse too, in the other facility. We had so many forklifts, had so many people, and they were just zigging and zagging all over the place, going down to the basement to get material, coming back up. I mean, there was no flow. We didn't have the luxury of really putting ourselves in a flow because we were so on top of ourselves.
Dude, you'll appreciate this because you're from Mississippi, like me.
Yeah.
I used to refer to it as a fire ant mound.
Okay.
Remember the fire ant
yeah.
mounds? You kick a fire ant mound over.
100. Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Because they were going everywhere.
That's right.
Just scattered. Yeah.
Yep.
On top of each other. And
So
that's what we were.
that's so from my perspective, from the integrator perspective, I want to break it down. Kind of people, process, profit. What I see, like starts breaking first, and kind of then what happens after that is, in my opinion, what I saw was process started breaking down. People couldn't get the job done in an 8-hour day, so overtime starts to spike. We start trying to create more hours in the day. Processes just start failing because the process that we had that got us to the point that we were at was no longer good enough in the moment that we were in. Forget the process like getting you the next 2 years down the road. We were getting stuck right we were. Well, then what happens is because process starts failing, and as an integrator, as an operator, you start feeling pressure. The next thing you want to do to release pressure is hire people.
Yeah.
So because everybody's stressed out, the work is complex, the work is overwhelming, and there's a ton of work. You're short on space, you're short on automation, you're short on efficiency. So the next lever that you pull naturally is, let's go hire people to try to help us get out of this. And then the death blow, which we didn't get to this, thankfully, but then the death blow is that's when profit starts to take a nosedive.
Yeah.
Because you've lost efficiency. Processes are breaking down. You're trying to hire more people just to get the work done. And now your P&L starts to tip upside down, and that's the death spiral.
Yeah, and we never got to that point, like you said, which is good. But going through the whole process, I mean, what kind of reminds you of being in mid-flight of an airplane and trying to rebuild the airplane at the same time, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know that's a cliche statement, but that's any business owner going through change or transformation.
Yeah.
You can't land the plane.
Sit there and take a break and
No.
fix it and do that. Hey, you're still flying, brother.
You can't just pause the business for 2 years
Yeah.
and rebuild it.
Yeah. That's a no-go.
Yeah.
You have to keep flying, you have to keep moving, and you just got to fix it on flight,
Well, think about that from your perspective, from the owner visionary perspective, when somebody says, relative to transformation, system rebuild, we're moving. When, moving facilities, we're rebuilding the entire plane while we're flying it.
Yeah.
From your perspective, like what are the things that you saw? What did that mean to you, as the owner, as the visionary?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it just, you got to keep going. You got to keep flying, right? And so, whether you have an issue with the windshield up there in the front or the engines, you're still, trying to, you got a bunch of duct tape sometimes, and that's what we had at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
We had the duct tape. We were fixing everything as we were going and keeping the wings together and keeping everybody on board and making sure everything's safe, and we're still moving. But at some point, you got to say, okay, duct tape's not working anymore. Now we got to really start taking our time. And so while you're flying, you're inside and you got a crew down there. It's almost like not the Titanic, but because we don't want to sink the ship, right? But you're building things as you're going, and then you're replacing them as they go. And so at some point, if you keep doing that, you're gonna have a new plane. It just takes time to get there, and that's what we did. Hey, first thing we need to do is fix the left wing because it's in the worst shape. And so we get in there, and our team on the e-commerce side or even on the production side, they did it. Or maybe the e-commerce is fixing the inside of the plane, and operations is more of they're fixing on the outside. If you're going to look at it from that analogy, but you just can't stop.
It's, what you mentioned, adding duct tape to the plane.
Yeah.
So when you said that, if you remember, we're sitting in our ELT L10. And this build was going to be expensive, and we knew we were going to spend a lot of money, and we were ready to make the investment because, quite frankly, we were already spending the money. We were just spending it keeping the old system alive.
100%. You're right. Yep.
But you can't afford both.
Yeah.
You can't afford to keep spending money in the current system that you're in and invest in the new system at the same time. So when Wayne said duct tape, it reminded me of the conversation where we all agreed we're not spending money on the old system anymore.
Yeah, just
Remember
enough just enough for duct tape.
Enough to keep it alive.
Yep.
Just duct tape.
Wow, that's a good point.
So
great point.
We allowed bugs. We let some things break, and we had to create manual workarounds to keep the system going.
Yeah.
There were for 2 years basically, no new enhancements.
Mm-hmm.
We were asking ourselves every single time we had to spend money, is this something that we have to have to keep the business running or not? And we didn't. Those were very hard decisions because sales is screaming, customer service is screaming, order processing screaming. They're all screaming about we need this and we need that and this isn't working right. And we're up here trying to fly the plane, and we're telling people, no, people are getting sucked out of the window, and the plane's broken and people are getting sucked out of the window. And we're like, let's put some duct tape over it, or plug it up with your hands or something. We're just, we got to get there kind of thing.
It was one of those, as you've called it before, is maybe like a fail-safe environment where, hey, what's going to happen if this does break? And if it's not going to be something that's detrimental, then it's going to be okay, and we're going to be able to still fly the plane and keep things moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because that was a big deal because for 2 years, like you said, we never made the enhancements. We slowed down on the stuff. But one thing that never suffered, our customers never felt it, I don't think. They still saw the same experience that they always had, and we still made sure that, hey, they're going to get that same experience. Our salespeople can still sell it the way they are. We just internally, we had to feel the pain for 2 years. And then once we got the new system, you got to learn how the new system works. But, now with the new system, now with the new facility, and you're talking about being able to just open up and stretch a little bit. Now you're off that plane and you're onto a different plane. You've all of a sudden you built, you've gone from a little prop plane to a jet engine, right, plane. And, no longer you hear the propellers and they're about to fall off and that kind of thing. Now it's a little quieter to a certain degree because the jets are behind you and you're flying, and now you can just put the gas in it and make it go.
Yeah. And, for the folks, we have a lot of, as a percent, we have a lot of folks like Steven. What's up, Steven?
What's up?
Running fast partitions. A lot of other listeners, they have multiple businesses, multiple divisions.
Yeah.
So we had this massive investment going on in CDF, and fast partitions was just as wrecked from a system standpoint, just as many issues, but we couldn't do both at once.
Right.
Number one, from a capacity standpoint. Number two, from an affordability standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't do both at once. So we had to make that decision. So it's difficult to it's easier to keep the CDF team motivated because they can see what we're building. They're a part of it. But it was much more difficult to keep the fast partitions team engaged because it's like, hey, you guys just have to wait and wait and wait and wait. So we had to continue making investments in that system.
Right.
It wasn't fair for us to just cut that off. So we did. We continued enhancing. We continued upgrading. Because we knew it was going to be really up until, kind of where we are today before we could start pivoting our attention to fixing the next big constraint, that being the FP system.
Yeah. Think of how scary that was, though. So you brought that up, but think about how that was because when we took over FP and then we had to make some changes and get it to where it was moving good, and we did, and really turned it around really quick. And then we implemented a new system for them. If we're talking about that metaphor of flying a plane, that plane almost hit the ground and blew up. I mean, we were at 30,000 feet,
Dude.
and it went down to 100 feet before it turned and went back up.
It actually may have bounced off the ground.
It may have bounced off the ground. I mean, because it was bad. I mean, we were in a bad situation for a bit. We were close to saying, hey, should we even keep this thing running and close it down, if you remember?
I don't want to talk about that because it's a good thing I've got these like earmuffs on.
Yes.
Because my ears right now are bright red.
They tingling
with blood pressure because we were, as we discovered, we were flat out lied to.
Yeah.
About why we had to transition to the new system, and so I don't even want to get into that.
And we transitioned too soon on that.
Yeah,
but you look at it now.
It was a disaster. But at the end of the day, what I'll ultimately take ownership. The biggest regret I have is with fast partitions is we should have never, ever, ever, ever in a million years put them on that new system.
Yeah.
We should have stayed right where we were, and if nothing else, optimized there or pivoted away.
Yeah.
But you're right. Okay.
And the reason I brought that up, though, real quick.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
The reason I brought that up is going into what we just did with CDF and putting the new system in here. That's always something in the back of your mind, right? That, man, we just saw what happened there, and that hurt. And CDF has always been the company, the main thing. Keep the main thing,
paying the bills.
And paying the bills. And man, that was, for me as a business owner, that was one of the scary things too. That looking back on it, it was always in the back of my head. And so, getting it right off the first part and making sure you had the right team. And I remember us having that when we were just meeting with different companies that were going to help us, different people, and how we're going to do it, because we're going to do a lot inside, but we're going to have some help on the outside. And we interviewed several different people.
Yep.
And I remember when Joe came in, and we sat down and started, and all of a sudden he just stood up and he started talking and started laying it out. I can't remember if I looked at you or whatever, but I know when that meeting was over, I was like, "That's our guy."
Yep. And that's when we decided to hire. It was at that time Hero Digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. We knew we went through multiple consultants, multiple agencies, interviewing and trying to find the right fit for us because it was a big deal. But yeah, you're right. The sting of crashing the fast partitions plane multiple times, and it did crash because I've said this before on the podcast. You pulled me in your office one day. I'll never forget. I am traumatized by this. Wayne, that I can't remember him ever like raising his voice or yelling at me, thankfully. But he pulled me in his office and he said, "Steve, I just had to pull $500,000 out of the CDF profit account over to fast partitions just to keep the bills paid. Like, we can't keep going like this." And that conversation just stuck. It was like a knife right straight in my heart to know that that's what we had done to a business that just several months before
was
printing money.
Yeah.
And we put in this new system that ended up being just, garbage, and we crashed that sucker. But any other business owner would have been sunk. But we had CDF.
Yeah.
That was making money, so we had that to finance.
The diversification helped us, to be honest with you.
If we didn't have that situation, most other business owners would have been out of business.
Yeah.
Without question. And not like sold to somebody.
No, out of business.
You're bankrupt, out of business.
Because nobody wanted it.
Nobody would have wanted it at that point.
Because at that point
losing money. All right.
The transformation and the other side is what helps, right?
So, all right, let's keep moving. Why do employees often feel the pain before they see the benefits? And from my perspective, I'll answer this. Why do employees, they feel the pain of the transformation before they see the benefits of the transformation? And I was very clear with the CDF team. I basically told everyone, I didn't say for 2 years, I said for about 1.5 years. It just ended up taking 2 years. But I told them, you're going to work overtime. You may be working nights. You may be working weekends. You're going to have your normal day job, flying the plane, and then you're going to have this part-time job of helping us build a new plane while you're doing it. And I very unapologetically, I tried to cover that up front because I didn't want to feel bad 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, asking Austin Squires or Trevin Poole or Matthew Wilson or any of those folks.
Right.
Shout out to the Brain Trust. I didn't want to feel bad for asking more of them. So I handled it up front. Hey, you're going to feel it, and I don't want you complaining. This is how it is. And above and beyond core values, passionate about winning, every single one of them, I only mentioned 3 names, but every single person on the team jumped in and said, hey, we got your back. And they all did more, every single person.
And that was very pivotal at that time. It was, but think about that. When you have that kind of change, there's so much uncertainty when you're doing it, and nobody wants that. When you come to work, you want to know, hey, what's going on, what's in it for the day, and how we're doing, and where we're moving. And even when we get the new system and our sales team starts working with it, it was a lot of uncertainty because it wasn't because the system was bad. It's just because they still were getting used to the system, right? And even though the old system, for the most part, was broken and unrepairable at that time, moving into the new system, there was so much uncertainty because you just didn't know how to do it and what to do. And we had a lot of fail-safes inside of that one where people just, hey, follow the instructions, ask the right people, ask the system. The system will tell you as well, how to fix it, which is genius on that part, So, but there's a lot of things on that. But
we could do a whole podcast on that
could.
too.
That's pretty sharp.
The knowledge base we built is
Yeah.
genius. You can ask the system
Ask the
basically
system.
what's wrong.
Yeah, what's
What do
wrong?
we need?
What do I need? How to fix this? And it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. And I would say it's 99.9% correct on how to fix it.
We're giving away our secrets now.
Yeah. Well, you still got to know what the knowledge base is.
That's true.
But same way with coming in here, there's so many different things. It's something new. When you bring something new, it's always that uncertainty until you start doing it. Like the big machine that we put in the back. Well, it's big, it's intimidating. You don't know what to do, and you look at it, it's like, wow, But now they're getting used to it. Everything's starting to move, starting to run. They know how to do this, and it's like, oh, this system, it actually runs pretty good. It's pretty easy.
For the first week, it felt like every time we touched it, it broke.
Yeah, but we brought in somebody that knew, understood the machine, and doing it, so that made a huge difference for us. The same way when we started staining years ago, we had no clue or no idea how to stain a wood door, none. And now you look at it, and it's for us, the process is very simple and very easy because we've learned it, we perfected it, we put out a great quality product,
top notch
all the way around. And and those are things you either get all the way in or you get all the way out. But you got to ask yourself, is it worth making that investment up front? And so we just did.
Two quick things before we close. Quentin hasn't signaled me yet, but I feel like the emotion of him wanting to signal me is growing. So 2 quick things. First thing I want to get into is, what do leaders get wrong in a transformation, in a major change process? I want to talk about that because I made these mistakes and I don't want anybody else to make those same mistakes. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, but I'll go first. What I see leaders get wrong, what I got wrong. Number 1 is you want to trust your leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to say, but, even though you're not supposed to, I always tell people all the time, don't use but, use which is why kind of statements. I've never taught that on the podcast, the which is why. I'll do that another podcast. How to not say but use which is why. Anyways, I always teach people to, trust your leaders. You want to trust your leaders, right? Let them own and make decisions. In a major transformation, dude, you got to ask questions. Don't assume anything. Like, I'm just going to say it like this. In a major transformation, trust is out the window. And I know that sounds terrible, but when you got $20, $30 million hanging out on the line as an owner or as an integrator or whatever the case is, I'm not trusting anything.
Yeah.
And when I think back to the Fast Partitions disaster, what did we not do or what did I not do? I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't probe. I didn't dig in. I just trusted, oh, this broke, so we had to make this decision, right?
Yeah.
And we ran with it. Well, lesson learned. Well, in the CDF situation, I hate to say it like this, but this is just a different level. This transformation is a different level. I didn't trust anything. I asked all the questions. I sat in all the meetings. Now, I made sure that I wasn't a bottleneck. We kept things moving and we made
Right.
decisions, right? So it
But you
wasn't
asked a
like,
lot of good questions during the process when other people didn't ask a question, and if you would not have asked those questions at times, this system would not be
yeah,
where it is now.
that's true. And a lot of that was because I didn't know. So I'm asking questions about like, hey, well, how would this work and how would that work?
Yeah,
And then through that discovery, you find out like, oh, we didn't think about that,
yeah,
kind of thing. So my challenge to leaders going through transformation is that's the time. I know it sounds terrible. I can't even believe I'm saying it myself, but this is not a fail-safe environment. You don't just trust your team to go execute. You dig in, you sit in the meetings, you know what's going on, you ask all the questions, you don't assume anything, and you take ownership for that whole entire thing. You don't hang failure on one of your teammates,
right.
or somebody who's working for you in a major transformation. You dig in and you verify and you vet and you check everything. And that's what I didn't do the first time. And the second time, I feel like I did. And that wasn't the reason why we were successful, but I feel like that prevented us from crashing in a few different situations.
Well, it's communicate, communicate, communicate. You
Oh,
have to
man.
communicate. You have to just keep driving it home. You have to keep talking about it. If you're not talking about it with your team, then you're going to fail right off the bat. And like you said a second ago, don't assume alignment, right?
Yeah.
Because if you assume it, what's that old cliche word for assume? You're going to
We
make an
can't,
ass out of you and me.
dang it.
I shouldn't have said that, but it's true.
He'll beep it out.
He'll beep it out. But it kind of does
But it
work
is
that
true.
way. It is
No,
true.
you're right. You're right. That's
But
exactly right.
you have to communicate it, because if you don't, how do you know that it's going to work right? And that's what happened with FP when we did that system.
We assumed.
We assumed and that, hey, this is what it is, and someone led us in the wrong direction and just almost buried the thing. But with CDF, we communicated. You did a fantastic job communicating. Our other leaders did a fantastic job communicating. The team that we were working with, it was just, there were so many calls, so many meetings. And I'm so glad for you, because I didn't have to sit in on hardly any of those. You guys built it. You guys did it. But we got a great team here. The team that we have here now, the brain trust, the guys and the girls that just really helped build that structure and that team, man, they know a lot.
Yeah.
But it takes that team to be part of it. They owned it.
You're right. And the last question here, I think this is probably the most critical one, is how do you know that transformation is working? Like, when how I don't want to answer this for you, but talk to me about the moment where you felt like, dude, this is working. Like this new system or this new building, like we're going to be okay. Like this isn't going to crash. It's not going to be an FP situation. Like
I tell you what,
it's what were you seeing or feeling that told you, hey, transformation's working?
Transformations. I'll let you discuss more of the e-commerce side, that part of it, because you got it on that part big time. I could feel it just by your energy and the team and knowing where we're going with it, but I wasn't nearly as involved as I was in the warehouse. For a long time, there was a joke: if you want to find Wayne, where would you find him?
At the board.
At the board.
That's right. Yeah.
It looks so small here now too when you walk out.
Yeah.
But what I did is I got a 4 foot by 8 foot dry erase boards magnetized, and I made an exact replica of this building, and I put all three of them together and put it right outside the conference rooms where we did most of our meetings. And then I started putting things in place as I saw it. And then as team members walked up, we started discussing, like, for fabrication, for the frames and all that. If you'd have seen where it started and what I had put together, because I was looking at it through my lens, and then seeing the team come up and say, well, let's do this, and the alignment and the ownership that they had made me start feeling good, and made them start feeling good too. And not only, and we did that with every department, every section. And there were times I would walk up and I would see several of those members sitting there looking at it, and they were talking about it. And when I started seeing that, I knew that we were starting to build something good, because it wasn't my ownership at that point. It was their ownership. And when they started owning it and started taking it, and as we came in here, we put this thing together pretty much the way we had it laid out on that board, and not a lot has changed, to be honest with you. And it's worked very effectively. And it's a whole lot more streamlined now than it ever was over at the other facility.
So this is when it happened for me. So transformation's is a long process, okay? I don't care what kind of transformation you're going through. Any type of transformation is a long process, whether long as 6 months or whether long as 2 years. There's milestones along the way.
Right.
It's like diamonds in the rough, right?
Yep.
Well, the moment I knew transformation was working was we were on one of those conference calls, and it was kind of like version 1 or version 2 was being unveiled to us. The custom UI
Right.
that they had built and all that. And they're clicking through all of the options, and we're seeing images, and then we see
Yeah.
we see it coming together. And dude, that was like a catalyst that pushed everybody the rest of the way, because we could actually tangibly, visibly see the transformation. Right. It wasn't just on a spreadsheet anymore. It wasn't just requirements and rules and, all that kind of stuff.
20 or 30 pages of this and this and this code, this code, this code.
Yeah.
This does this, that does that.
Customer wants this, system does this,
Yeah.
User's trying to accomplish this, system all that. That's wild. But then when you see it in front of you,
Right.
even when you're not there yet, when you see that first version, it's like, dude, this is going to work. We can do this.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew it wasn't at the end when we flipped that thing on that first night.
Yeah.
And we're all sitting there, we're cut over to the new system, and we're waiting for the first quote to come through. It was like,
Way
that was
before
exciting, but it was way before that when I saw that it was possible. And that's when I knew.
But
this
that's
is gonna work.
the ownership of it, right? That's your drawing that you had, just the same as the drawing that I had with the team out there, that just you knew when everybody started collaborating and they started talking about it and they started taking ownership, then you know it's going to be a success.
Yeah.
And then that night that you had, and actually Stephanie and I, we were out of town, but everybody was up there and flipped the switch and got our first order just almost immediately. It was such a surreal moment. And then being over here and moving into this facility and getting it all laid out, and then being able to just move everything in really 1 week was unbelievable how they laid that out. And then we started running production super fast.
Yep.
So,
all right. Any last words before we close?
hey, just make sure you communicate. It's not about you; it's about your team. Making sure that you just collaborate with each other. Look into the future as much as you can. There's never a crystal ball, but you always got to continue to look and see where that bottleneck is. Where are you hitting a ceiling somewhere? And we were hitting ceilings, but we knew we were going to hit those ceilings before we ever hit them, and we started making plans to take care of that before it ever happened.
Yeah. Then the last thing I'll say is I think the biggest key takeaway on the CDF side was we had to transform before we hit the wall.
Yeah.
Like you got to make the decision to change. You got to make the decision to transform before you hit that wall. Because like we said earlier, businesses don't fail because they fail to change. Or they change too much. It's because they change too late.
Yeah.
So you got to make those decisions faster. All right. I didn't even look at that camera the whole entire time. I don't know if I'm supposed to or not.
I never look at that.
I've been staring at that one the whole time. I'm going to stare at this one this time. Thank you for watching, listening to 3PX Show. We love that you're here. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all the things. And we cannot wait to talk to you on the next episode. Thanks.
See ya.